Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and Merry Christmas to all of you. And I decided that this book will be a nice start for the next series from the review of my huge coloring book collection. From all the books by Lizzie Mary Cullen, I own almost all of them, apart from book about Spain. But I decided that I want to start from Magical Christmas. Here I have a Russian edition which was printed in excellent quality. Probably it has the best quality among my whole collection. Paper here is thick enough and in the same time it's white and smooth, so perfect for inktense. And fortunately I got this book after Magical City, Magical journey, so I already was familiar with style of Lizzie Mary Cullen, and I started to realize if you want to do decent jobs in decent works in her book, you have to work and you have to pay attention to details. You have to think about colors first of all. Here shading of course isn't so important, but the whole composition, color balance is extremely important. Mostly I use Inktense pencils here, and each December or sometimes November and December last years I dedicated to these books. So here we have mix of my early and more recent works, and I love all of them from the first to the last. And I am glad that this year I managed to add at least one work here. And I think that I started from the most interesting but the most challenging works from the spread, from the various spreads, and we have a lot of them here. It was very helpful that there were a Kolorowanka on Facebook group, and only every 2 weeks we had a new picture to color from various books by Lizzie Mary, and it really helped me to slowly go forward and to add new pictures to my book. I remember it was a lot of fun to do this Christmas in Brazil, and I also enjoyed doing this one. Background I covered with dark indigo because the first something which I did wasn't very nice looking, so I covered everything with opaque acrylic paint but it looked so dark, so macabre, that I decided to add this shiny blue. I hope that you can see it, and on top of it I draw a lot of white snowflakes. So now this beautiful village is surrounded by snow, but at least it doesn't look very dark and it has some Christmas spirit around. But all the details here are very cute, and it was nice practice how to draw snowflakes in different shapes. Then for some time I didn't have any inspiration for this book, and the nice push I got after I received neocolors. On this page I used neocolors for this huge background because I wasn't able to imagine how to do this background with Inktense pencils, and neocolors were perfect here. For the candles I used Inktense. I wanted to use this contrast between warm and cold colors, and I think that I managed to show this heat from the candles, a very bright, a very warm atmosphere, and a lot of shiny stars, which I did using gold and copper acrylic paint. It was one of my early works. Then I hadn't masked any black lines, but still I loved them. And I remember that each December this book really helped me to start feeling Christmas spirit, to start being in holiday mood, so this book was a saver for me for many years. Sometimes I color in this book also in the middle of summer. I do love to participate in Christmas in July. You know, I can color Christmas books throughout the year, but especially somewhere in the middle of very hot July, it will be especially perfect. So I also added a couple of pictures during summer. I think that these candles, they are one of my favorite finished pages. Here I especially love my background with stars. I don't know if you can see them. I hope yes. I still love this page. It was important for me. You know that in Ukraine we have difficult situations, that we still have a war on our territory, so it was important for me to do this picture, which is called Peace during Christmas time, and I still like this page. Here I again used neo colors and ink tents for the flowers for the bowl, and I do love this mix, this matte surface created by neo colors and more shiny and brighter look of ink tents. Oh, this one is very nice, but I remember how time consuming was this German Christmas market. Here I also added some golden watercolors to add some small details, and again I do love how gold look together with ink tents, this difference of textures. Oh, here I experimented a lot. Again, black background doesn't look very good, so I added some silver lines, like we have some pine tree branches, some slightly shining. Here I used technique from decoupage. It's a hot embossing, so surface now isn't flat, but I do love my white snowflakes. It was very interesting to experiment and to use something from my other hobbies. I remember that a couple of years ago I spent half of the December for this for this nutcracker spread, a very long coloring. A lot of nice pictures and a lot of nice memories. This one I also love. It's Christmas during time of the Tudors, during Elizabeth I. That's why I added those Tudor roses here. It was interesting to think about genuine colors for the clothes, for the wall hanging, for the wallpaper. So it was also not very easy, but very interesting to do. You can see that I started from the most difficult and most challenging pictures. I think that I finished almost all spreads apart from the beautiful spread about Amsterdam. I hoped that I would be able to do Amsterdam page during this Christmas, but sorry I wasn't able to find enough time this December. This ice rink I started in January of this year, yes, January of this year, and somehow weather changed. We didn't have any decent snow, any decent winter weather, so I lost my inspiration for that ice rink. I love this page. It's called Snowfall, I believe, but it was one of the pictures where I got a lot of experience about combining Inktense pencils, how many Inktense pencils it's better to use if you want to create interesting look of the page, the depth. And I believe that those toys was my first work in this book. Still nice. This one I finished recently, just a week ago, and this one I consider as a failure. I was very happy with Everest. I deliberately decided to use these pastel or cold colors, slightly unusual. I did this candle in warm colors, and then I'm totally unhappy with this heart. It totally doesn't match all other colors of the page, and I don't like the look of the hearts inside, so I was very disappointed here. But I love this spread. It maybe it looks simple because of the big huge area with the poetry in the central part, but around we have so many cute details. It was very interesting to do, and I love this cute angel. That's all for the magical Christmas. Let's move to the magical city. I think that I repeated this story already 100 times, but Magical City was one of the reasons why I fall in love with coloring, because of the Peter Hewitt for the first time. I saw how beautifully he worked in this book with Inktense, and I immediately purchased it. I also have it in a Russian edition, but paper here is a little bit mm, different from Magical Christmas, but still quite good. First, I started to myself to test my skills on smaller pictures. I already told this story that I started to work here from Egypt page. I was extremely proud of myself, but then I saw result by Peter. I compared it with my result, and I realized that it's not an easy book, and if I want to get decent results, I definitely have to learn more how to shade ink tanks, to combine them, and that I can do much better works comparing to the first one which I did here. This London spread, I hope that I managed to put it properly on the screen. It's huge. And I still consider it as one of the most interesting spreads here, a lot of details. Why I love this book is because it's very instructive. Each time when I colored something, when I had to color street in London or any other uh, city, if I wasn't there, if I wasn't familiar with the local places, I always try to find reference pictures, and even if everything in the end is colored in fantasy way, still I try to look at reference pictures. I still love this portrait of Sherlock Holmes, very nicely drawn by Lizzie Mary, and it was very interesting to select colors. I colored a lot here, and my channel started from this book when finally I decided that I want to share with you my works from this book. This China spread also was very interesting to do. I was afraid to do such huge areas with various green colors, but in the end I do love how everything looks here. Very nice spread page from Japan. I enjoyed doing all those peonies. Sometimes I try to experiment with other types of the background, but mostly, if it's possible, I try to use Inktense as much as possible, and it was the first spread which I colored filming my video for my channel, so it's quite dear for me. It brings me so many nice memories about the beginning, the start of my channel. This one I totally copied from Peter Hewitt works, and I also followed her tutorial for this Paris picture. Some of this picture I totally don't like how I did them, like this stained glass window, Some of them I did more than 4 years ago, so it was such a beginning of my hobby, but such a nice beginning. Then I tried to experiment with colors to go from real colors as far as possible. That's why I colored this cathedral in Paris with such an unusual color combo. And I think that I do love it, that this style is also very nicely matching to this book, just like I used unusual colors here for the Tower Bridge. I don't know if it would be possible for me to finish this book because I have spreads like this from Tokyo and I don't have any idea how to color it. And some of the pictures I can't say that I'm very inspired to color them like this one, but maybe just for the idea to finish this book. Maybe one day. I know that a lot of you like this book and very often receive requests to do something. This spread is good, maybe I will do it. So I receive a lot of requests to continue coloring in this book, to finish it. So maybe those requests really will push me back to this book. I do love this spread from Vienne, but I have no idea how to fill in this huge empty background, and I don't want to just to leave it white. This one is one of my favorite pictures. I do love this Stockholm with Snowfall. I enjoy doing all four houses in various color combos, and personally for me, again, it was very instructive in using various color combos for Inktense pencils. Couple of pictures here I colored with Faber-Castell Pitt pens, so that's why they look a little bit different from other pages. I do love this Beatles picture, very fun. I never was afraid to do huge, very detailed spreads in Lizzie Mary Cullen. For me, it's like step by step solving a puzzle. It's much more difficult for me to color pages where there are not so many details and just one image in the central part and nothing around. I remember it was very interesting to do this page from Malt, to select colors for each of the fragments and in the same time to create one well-balanced picture. And I love this page from France. I did enjoy coloring castle here, so I even added a little bit of oranges here. This was also one of my earliest works when I just studied how to use Inktense pencils, how much pigment to apply, how to dissolve them, which brushes to use. And pictures like this one, without any inspiration from the real place, I don't know how to color them. I remember that I colored this page exactly on the day when Olympic Games in Brazil started, so it was another very interesting time. And that's all for the Magical City. My favorite book by Lizzie Mary Cullen still is A Magical Journey. I consider it the most interesting, both from the different pictures which we have inside, because here we started to have characters, we started to have various styles of pictures, and I decided to purchase this book immediately after I saw a preview of this beautiful map. And I also love this idea of the traveling around the world, so It was also very instructive for me because a lot of places, especially in Australia or New Zealand, I've never heard about, so it really helped me. I can say that these pictures, which with character, with Lizzie herself, and with cute Puck, was very easy for me to color. In the beginning, I choose this style with acrylic background and colorful image in the center. Here I probably have my favorite works in all the books of Lizzie Mary, but still I have some unfinished pictures because I didn't know how properly color all those places with words. It wasn't very interesting to do. In the very beginning, I tried to color from the beginning to the end, like indeed we are traveling, but then I gave up on this idea and I proceeded to color pages which were inspiring for me. This one is still one of my favorite spreads. I think that here I used almost all colors from Inktense set, but in such a way I managed to do a very colorful page. And also here I have a lot of golden and copper acrylic paint, so it's also shiny. Pictures here are busy with so many details, but for me it's much easier to color, as I said. I much more prefer this style comparing to more uh, simplified pictures which we have in the book about France or book about England. So that's why I love this book so much. I try to experiment here with colors again and with different backgrounds. And I also tried to use watercolors here, but I can say that it was very interesting. Even watercolors wasn't able to save this quite boring page with forest and nothing more. This was a complete disaster. I didn't know what to do, so I simply played with various acrylic paints and it's nothing interesting. But I do love this Japanese part of the book. Again, I experimented with colors and I still love this picture of Tokyo. And this journey on the unicorn, also very interesting. Oh, this was a total disaster because somehow I decided that I can color portrait and portrait with a very fair skin of for geisha with Inktense pencils, and I managed almost completely ruin my page. And even after I somehow managed to complete this picture, I did dark background here with a lot of dark colors and they managed to bleed through on the back of the page. So Geisha is a little bit disappointed from my efforts. Probably this was one of my best pictures in the Japanese part of the book because I do love this color combo of turquoise blue and various orange brown colors and these beautiful red gates. You can see that probably my favorite colors from the whole Inktense set are purple, mauve, fuchsia, and I used a lot of them. This book I definitely will continue to color a lot of nice pictures here. And again, when I got my set of Inktense, of Neo colors, and when I started to use them together with Inktense, it really helped me to get much more inspiration and much more possibilities for this book. But this page, which I still love a lot, It's completely colored with Inktense. Inktense have so many nice colors for the water, and I used all of them here. Again, I colored a lot of pictures here because of the color along of the Facebook group, and when they stopped, I also stopped to color in this book. Here I used neon colors for the background and matching colors of Inktense for the building. Here I again experimented with colors, that's why I decided to do this green water background. I decided that I am tired of blue background for the water, so only for the bubbles I used blue, and I think that it's also nice. It really helped me to get some understanding of colors, and at least I did something unusual. I love this spread. Here I first used neon colors for the top part for the sky here and for the whole background here, and I do love this flying car. Another interesting spread where I used various mediums, starting from acrylic page for the central part of this Route 66 sign, neon colors also, then I added more details on the map, and again I learned a lot about this very old and very famous route in United States. So I hope that in the next year I will add a couple of new finished projects to this book. Maybe we have to organize another color along, and that will be my clue to finish this book. Now let's move to France. I have France and England books, and I would say that I would prefer for Lizzie Mary Cullen to work a little bit more on the pictures. The theme of this book is so nice, but sometimes pictures, they have slightly lesser amount of details than I prefer. This one I colored with Prismacolors, and I realized that it's possible to do interesting works in Lizzie Mary Cullen's book, not only with Inktense, but with regular pencils. It's also quite possible, and it's totally different experience. I think that colors which I selected here are quite nice, match the idea of Paris spirit. I used a lot of lavender, lilac, clay rose, all those beautiful pastel and muted colors from Prismacolor set, and I love this page. Maybe I will continue to use Prismacolors in this book. Maybe that will help me to color more. I much more prefer pictures where I have architectural elements, buildings which I can recognize, which I can color remembering or looking at reference pictures, than some abstract pictures like this one. Here I did this Musée d'Orsay building, and I tried to imitate background being inspired by the Starry Night by Van Gogh, even if painting isn't in this museum, but still I wanted to make this connection. You know that I'm not a huge fan of mandalas or ornaments, that's why I hadn't colored a lot in this book. But if I do have a page with connection with some place in French or something from French traditions, then such page became much more interesting for me. why I'm showing you my unstarted clear pages. Sorry guys, I was so much invested in talking that I realized that it's not a flip through of the whole book. It was my first page here. I don't know what I tried to do here, maybe some kind of field with various kind of crops, but still it was nice beginning and I enjoyed doing all those buildings, small and bigger ones. Do I have something else here? Probably not. And it's a shame, honestly. Yes, I think that it's all. And we can move to the Taldeho book, which I love. I'm glad that here on the last page of the book we have a reference about buildings, about places where Lizzie Mary Cullen got her inspiration, and also this map, very helpful. So what I have colored here. Here I love that Lizzie Mary added some portraits. I think that this teapot is one of my last finished works. Again, I used a little bit of neon colors to create soft background. And for the body of the teapot I used Prismacolors. They helped me to create this shading on the china, and for the rest I used Inktense. I even tried to add some jasmine tiny flowers and rose flowers because of the jasmine tea and rose flavor, and maybe because of the English roses. So that's why I decided to add a little bit flowers from myself. This one I did for some of the St. Valentine's Day when I didn't have any pictures with pears, so I selected this heart, still nice. For the portrait of Queen Elizabeth, I again combined mediums. Background is created using Derwent Graffiti and Derwent Inktense, and for the portrait I decided that I will be using Prismacolors, and I'm glad that Elizabeth looks quite decent and that I managed to color it properly. I think that picture is really very beautiful. This year I also did portrait of Anne Boleyn, and I was happy when I colored dress, when I added golden details on the fabric. I got inspiration for the color of the dress from the famous song Green Sleeves, but then I struggled so much with this empty background. I changed it probably 3 times, and in the end it definitely isn't very interesting, but at least now it doesn't distract attention from the Anne Boleyn. I also did this stained glass window, very nice. I think that almost everything here I did with Inktense, maybe just couple of colors here I added from Prismacolors for the yellow background. I can't remember already. And that was my first page which I did in this book, because I was so in love with the series. I wanted to color this famous house, and I still love colors which I selected for the ornament on the plate. My last finished picture here was this one. Again, I experimented with colors for the trees. I was tired of traditional green colors for the leaves, so that's why I decided to keep reference colors or realistic colors for the building, and to experiment a little bit for all other parts of the page. And that's it for all pictures from Lizzie Mary Cullen's book. I want to do this one, I always like it. So I hope that at least several pictures from Lizzie Mary Cullen's book I will be able to add during the next year. Now let's move to totally different style of the book. And what can I say? For me it's one of the most difficult books to color. I think that recently I totally abandoned idea of doing some decent pictures here, pictures which would bring me some happiness from the result. I'm never happy how my pictures here look. Some of them are not bad, but for me it's much easier to color the whole book of Selina Phoenix, the whole book by Teresa Goodrich, comparing to the small picture in this book or any other books by Johanna Basford. And what I have here, I have a lot of pages which I started but I totally lost inspiration. This one I colored with Derwent Color Softs. It's not bad but still nothing special. This one I started but abandoned. The same thing goes here. I enjoyed doing one part of the spread, but I totally lost any patience for the second part. It was simply too much for me. I would prefer to have different type of flowers here, and to do background with pencils also wasn't very inspiring. I tried to use various pencil brands, various mediums here, but I simply think that style of Johanna is difficult for me. But I do love the spread here. I experimented with various metals and I filmed video about how to color steel, how to color gold, how to color silver. So for beginners I hope that it could be helpful. Here I started to mix various pencil brands. I even used Koh-i-Noor Monteluz for the background and some of the polychromos for brighter colors, even soft pastel for the background. And nothing helped me to create interesting pictures here. Here I used Inktense together with Kuretake golden watercolors. It's simply, but at least it's shining. You can see how many abandoned pictures I have here. This one I did with Inktense and with a lot of golden watercolors. This spread I do love. Again, I have a nice tutorial for beginners for this spread, and many people after that repeated and used it as their inspiration. I was very happy to see other people's works based on my tutorial. I know that I have a couple of finished pictures in the end. I was quite happy with the process when I colored flowers with polychromos pencils, but then I did ugly olive green background. It didn't match the look of the flower, so I had to cover it with dark indigo. It looks strange, but what can I say? And my final page here is in the very end here. Now let's move to the book which is much more for my taste. It's Norse Mythology. Maybe I had to adjust my camera a little bit. It's by Jade Summer, and I don't know why this book isn't available anymore. I was sure that Books of Jade Summer, they are always available both in PDF or paper, but this is one and only which is unavailable now. And it's a shame because I consider it as one of the best books by Jade Summer. Apart from my second book, I definitely think that this one is the best. I'm very happy that I managed to get it in time. Of course, I hadn't colored here a lot of pages, and in the beginning I was confused by this paper with back sides, and I even had huge problems. So first let me show what I finished here. Yeah. The Heimdall was my first finished picture. I think that I simply wanted to color his horn. In this book I am limited to natural colors, a lot of blue, a lot of earth colors, brown, deep red, because I don't want to use some unusual fantasy colors. I want to color all those heroes from Norse mythology, like they are indeed dressed like in Viking style, so that's why my color palette is quite limited. Mostly on this paper I prefer to use polychromos, but I also added Prismacolors if I needed special colors. I also used acrylic paint like I did on the next page. Here. Then for the boar I used Derwent drawings. It also was quite interesting, but then after 2 finished pages, disaster came to my book. I started to do this page and I decided to use a watercolor for the background. I don't know why, simply because I wanted to do this sky in orange colors, and I have a lot of very nice golden and orange colors in my set of White Night watercolors. But on this paper it was total disaster to use watercolors. As they started to bleed through, this black paint started to be visible when paper was wet, and the whole page it was very rippled. You know that I prefer to work on smooth paper, and usually after I do watercolor underpaint, I go and I iron my page. So I did this background. I managed to save it a little bit with pencils, and I wanted to iron my page, but I hadn't realized that after ironing all, I don't know how to call it, like the paint from typography, they was stick to the next page, and it almost ruined this page. And you can see that black paint from here, now it's pressed to the finished page. You can see black here, so it ruined a lot of time just from couple of minutes from heat from my iron. It's good thing that I have second set of pictures, so I will be coloring in the second half of the book. But it really disappointed me in this idea of this black background. I don't like it. I know that maybe it's helpful when you color with alcohol-based markers, but it's such a waste of paint. And as I said, it's almost ruined my book. I managed to save a lot of pictures, but most of all I was afraid because of this finished page. Anyway, I used pencils, I used acrylic paints here, and I think that after the day of disaster I put it away to cool myself a little bit. Maybe it's time to return to this book, because I think that pictures here are absolutely gorgeous. A lot of interesting portraits. I do love all details of their clothes, so a very nice book. And I promise you that one of the books which I will be using in January will be this one. Amazing book. It has 4 of my favorite books together by Jade Summer, and unfortunately for now I finished only one page with dragon, but I love it. I already selected for myself which pages I want to do in January, so I hope that you will be coloring together with me. For now I have just one finished page. It's quite a recent one. I think that I did it 2 months ago. And here I combined alcohol-based markers, a little bit of Prismacolors for the sky, a little bit of polychromasis for the finer details, and I love it. Next, let's move to the totally different style of book, and it will be Beauty of Horror by Ellen Robert. I know that not many people love this style of book, love this author, and I got a lot of negative comments when I color something from this book, but I do love it. Sometimes it's very nice to color something else apart from sweet bunnies, cool girls, flowers, and I always enjoy coloring something in this book. And of course I enjoy quality of this book. For me it's even nice to work with different color softs which I used here on this page. I try to select the least disgusting pictures here. I don't want to shock my followers when I do videos, but for myself, pictures, they are not bad. This book really helps me to experiment more with various mediums. Here I did quite interesting background, at least interesting for my taste. I used neon colors first and then a lot of pearlescent watercolors on top of it, and I think that it really matches the rest of the image. The rest I colored with polychromasis, which always behaved very well on this page, and for me I really enjoyed doing this book and I intend to continue in it. Many of pictures here I would like to color. I already can imagine which colors I want to do, so for me it isn't disgusting. Sorry guys. Another interesting page where I limited amount of colors which I used, and I deliberately wanted to do it, and I tried to create some kind of smoke around their figures, like they are coming from some kind of magical portal or magical looking glass, something like this, and like magical mirror maybe, and I'm glad that I managed to do exactly what I imagined. I also love to combine here matte and shining mediums to create some additional details. And my final page is here. Again, here I tried to use neo colors together with other mediums, and also it was very helpful in learning how to work with neo colors. And I think that final book for this part will be book by the same publishers. It will be Princess Bride. I love this book, but it's a little bit difficult for me because I haven't seen the movie yet. I know that it sounds strange, but yes. I'm a person from slightly different culture, so this movie wasn't available when I was small, and even when I started to color in this book I saw only reference pictures. I used various mediums here. Paper is good, but some of the designs are totally not for my taste. Some of them are good. I definitely don't want to color any of these wallpaper style designs, but portraits here are interesting. This is an example of totally disastrous coloring page. For me it's totally ugly, and I always shows it as a worst example of the possible coloring page. Here I got rid of the similar clouds on the background. I used acrylic paint to mask it. Mostly here I work with Prismacolors, but I also tried to use watercolors here for the portrait. I realized that it's possible to use watercolors mostly for one layer and then to work with pencils on top of it. And the only one page which I have here is this one. I think, yes, that I did here a watercolor underpaint and then details using pencils. I think that it's all for another part of my coloring book flip through, of my coloring book reviews. I hope that you have a wonderful Christmas times. Thanks for spending this hour together with me, and until the next series.